Throughout history, pop culture has always reflected the major events of its time and country of origin. We can still rely on it to relive those long-gone days by experiencing them through the eyes of their creator. But what is the Russian cultural environment like post-invasion of Ukraine in February 2022? Well, much like independent journalism, the judiciary, and other spheres of social life, it has been taken over by the all-reaching arm of the state machine. Many prominent Russian musicians, from famous rock singer Zemfira to rapper Oxymiron, have spoken out against the war immediately after it broke out, or at some point after. They ended up blacklisted from concert venues and banned from performing. A lot of them have also been declared foreign agents under Russian law. Russian media outlets even released an alleged blacklist of banned artists, which was spread among promoters. The list includes Russian musicians that have spoken against the war, publicly or otherwise, such as legendary rock band DDT, I Speak, rap group Kasta, and many others. On top of that, the list includes Ukrainian artists with a sizable fan base in Russia, such as Okean Elzy, Ivan Dorn, Monatik, and Svetlana Loboda. Both anti-war Russian and Ukrainian artists are now blacklisted from Russian stages and Russian radio. Some music promoters in Russia report that artists are even asked to sign a waiver prior to the performance to confirm that they will not be speaking out against the ongoing war in Ukraine. Others claim that representatives of Russia's infamous Center E, Center for Combating Extremism, pay visits to concert venues to make sure that waivers against the discreditation of Russian army are signed. Today, many of the most popular singers like Face and Monetochka have found themselves unable to work, perform, and live in Russia. Even Alla Pugacheva, one of Russia's biggest cultural icons for half a century, has fled to Israel after her husband, famous comedian Maxim Galkin, publicly condemned the war. Many of these artists, such as legendary rock singer Boris Grebenshchikov and rapper Noise MC, continue to perform outside of Russia, often raising money to help Ukrainian refugees and support other humanitarian causes. However, such an unprecedented draining of the country's most famous artists was sure to create a cultural void, one that the Kremlin was quick to fill with the right people. Shaman, born Yaroslav Dronov, is a 31-year-old singer and former contestant on the Russian version of The Voice. He shot to national popularity when his song Vstanem, or Let's Rise, a tribute to heroes of Russia, was featured on television and promoted by various governmental channels. Shaman's music is explicitly nationalistic and places a huge emphasis on traditional Russian national identity. Shaman, who never appears without a sizable cross around his neck, sets his music videos in churches, wheat fields, and Soviet-era apartment blocks. The face of Russia's modern patriotism has even gone as far as cutting his dreadlocks in a video for a song called Ispoved, Confession, and is now sporting a platinum blonde undercut. In Dronov, the Kremlin has found a perfectly shameless and dutiful cultural figure. He has been on stage with Vladimir Putin and performed for troops on the front line. Shaman's music career hasn't just made him notorious, it's also made him rich. As one of the most prominent artists in post-invasion Russia, his booking fees are astronomical. For a concert in the city of Cherepovets, he was paid 5.5 million rubles, equivalent to just under 70,000 US dollars. In the newest cycle of grants, 29 million rubles, approximately 360,000 US dollars, was awarded for the funding of an opera about Vladimir the Great, ruler of the Kievan Rus, traditionally venerated and appropriated by Russians, starring Shaman himself, to be performed in Moscow and annexed Crimea. Do not be surprised by such generous fees. Russia spares no money on its cultural propaganda. In the period just after the invasion, 93.5 million rubles, equivalent to over $1 million, were dedicated to organizing patriotic concerts across Russia, according to the BBC. A staggering 10.5 million rubles of this sum was spent to book rock musician Sergei Galanin and his group Serga. There are countless other examples, all stamped with Russia's trademark cronyism, toxic nationalism, and cultural conservatism. The worlds of pop culture and the state in Russia are now completely intertwined. Just look at Denis Maidanov, singer and member of the State Duma. In December 2022, Maidanov partnered with the Russian Defense Ministry to release a song called Sarmatushka, celebrating the RS-28 Sarmat intercontinental ballistic missile. The song emphasizes Russia's preparedness to use the weapons newly signed into production in August 2022 and explicitly threatens the United States. Perhaps the best illustration of Russia's new patriotic cultural climate was the televised concert held in Moscow's Luzhniki Stadium on February 22nd to celebrate the one-year anniversary of the invasion of Ukraine. Attendees, allegedly bolstered with extras promised 500 rubles or less than $7, were treated to a patriotic spectacle. There was a rapping soldier, patriotic and nationalist singer Oleg Gazmanov performing with tape covering the label of his $4,700 Prada jacket, and a set of pro-Putin musicians shamelessly performed a cover of Gruppa Krovi, an anti-war anthem made famous by the iconic rock musician Viktor Tsoi. But when it came to the prime slot of pumping up the crowd before Vladimir Putin would come on stage, there was only one person for the job. It could only be Shaman. Dressed in a t-shirt with inscription, "I am Russian," he introduced the president with the now famous "Vstanem." Such a shameless demonstration of loyalty to the regime did not go unnoticed, and Shaman was banned from entering Latvia, along with many other pro-Kremlin artists. On top of that, the EU sanctioned 3 of Russia's ultra-patriotic singers, Oleg Gazmanov, Yulia Chicherina, and Nikolai Rastorguev, all fierce supporters of the invasion. The rift between anti-war and pro-Kremlin artists is becoming greater every month, and we are yet to see what effect it will have on Russian culture in the future.